Welcome to the Procure Smarter podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Sharon Cook. With over 20 years of experience in hospitality purchasing and consulting and a PhD in procurement ethics, I'm on a mission to help you procure smarter. ProcureSmart is a cloud-based boutique purchasing agency. Our team has experience with projects of all sizes, including conversions, renovations, and new construction. We offer dynamic customer service and competitive pricing. Reach out to us today to learn more about how ProcureSmart can purchase for your next project. On the show today, we have Janene Liston, also known as the Pricing Lady. So stay tuned. How are you?
Got it. I'm well. Hold on.
So-
I'm seeing like lots of pictures of me.
Oh.
I'd rather see you. There we go.
Well, thank you for doing this.
Wait, I feel like it's not coming through here. Hold on. Let's not break these. Do you hear me okay? That's
I can hear you fine, yes.
Okay, not when I mute myself. There we go. That should work better.
Can you hear me now?
Oh yeah.
Perfect.
Excellent. That should reduce any echo.
Thank you so much for doing this.
No problem.
So I have already pre-recorded an introduction for you. So if you're ready, I'm ready.
Yep. Are we doing video as well or just audio?
We are doing video as well.
Okay, then I'll turn that on and take these off. There we go.
You look lovely. Okay, we are talking to Janene Liston, and you are known as the Pricing Lady.
Yes, I am.
So I read, let's see here. You help your listeners turn their passions into profits by effectively charging for the value they deliver. Is that right?
Correct.
All right, we'll start a little bit by telling me, now, are you originally from California?
Yes, actually, I was born in San Francisco, raised primarily in Sacramento.
Wow, and now you're living where?
I live in Basel, Switzerland. I moved here about 20 years ago with a job for the life experience.
Wow. Okay, that's awesome. I've heard a lot of people moving away for careers, but you're my first one who moved to Switzerland for it.
Yeah, I came over on a 2-year contract, and 20 years later, I'm still here.
That is amazing. All right. And you also, is this right that you started your career as a structural engineer?
Yes, that is absolutely correct.
Okay, so walk me through, how did you get from structural engineering to being the Pricing Lady?
Yeah, so I started with architectural engineering actually, and worked in that area worked as a project engineer for 3 years, and then decided that there was something missing. And a lot of it had to do with creativity on the one hand, but also human interaction. I was spending all this time sitting at my desk in isolation in a sense. I really enjoyed the part where I went out to the field, but I spent too much time in the office, not just calculating things. So I decided to leave the industry, and I didn't know what to do. I ended up in a high voltage engineering company and worked my way into product management. The first thing they did was give me the price list for my product lines, and it was 20 years old.
Wow.
Wow is right. Now, I had no commercial experience at this time, but I had enough intuition, let's say, to know that that wasn't right. So I started to change that, and I restructured the whole price list, and actually not just my portfolio. We ended up doing everything and restructured how we did offers and basically upgraded that side of the business. It took us, a week or two sometimes to get an offer out the door. We were now at 24 to 48 hours. So that was really my first kind of step into it without really knowing what it was or that it was even a thing for that matter. Fast forward, I moved to Switzerland. I decided to stay here, and I had to get a job with a local contract. And I got hired as a global pricing manager for Siemens Building Technologies. It was their first pricing expert, and it was my first time being a pricing expert.
Well, okay, that's amazing. So were you nervous to take this role on?
No, not
More excited?
really. I was so excited. I was happy to be staying in Switzerland when, but I was really excited at the prospect of being able to create the role and develop what it would be. Now I had, I had a lot of commercial experience, but I wasn't really a pricing expert yet, which was quite interesting, but neither were they. So we grew into it together. And it was during that time I got my certification as a certified pricing professional.
Okay. So now one of the things that you said was that we're
Mhm.
not really taught pricing strategy. That's not something like I have a PhD, but in all the years I have gone to school, there was never a class on pricing strategy.
Right.
Um, and so how should a new service provider get
Mhm.
confident about talking about pricing?
Right. So I think, first of all, let me be clear. Most programs, when they do teach something about pricing, they will actually talk about the different strategies, a economy strategy or a skimming strategy. So they'll talk about the strategies, but they don't actually tell people how to go about setting the right prices. And that's what most people are looking to figure out how to do.
Right.
Now, it's nice to understand these other things, but it actually doesn't help them. Does a coach need to understand skimming strategy? Probably not.
Right. Probably not.
Not super practical and helpful for them, right? So what's really important, if you want to feel more confident about the prices that you offer is you have to understand where they're coming from. Why are those prices the right prices for your business? And most people are guessing, don't really have a solid reason behind why the price is what it is. They're simply guessing at it. Oh, everybody else is doing this, so I'll price a little bit less, right?
Right.
How can you feel confident in that?
Right. Yeah, that is very common to try to figure out what your competitor is doing. And
Mhm.
then I'll just come in a little bit under.
Right. Especially for your service-based businesses, they're like, I do this thing. This is what everybody else is doing, especially if they're new or if they feel any little hint with a lack of confidence, then they'll go, oh, well, I'll price 10% below.
Right. So one of the things that I find interesting about this, do you think it's
Mhm.
harder for women than it is for men to set the right price? Do you think it's a skill that women maybe just don't tackle it in the right way, or that we're taught to be nice, to be meek, to not be, for better word, the bitch on the table, is it harder for women to get that pricing structure?
Mhm. I think there's a couple things at play. I think men and women can both struggle with it. I think that oftentimes women have less of a commercial background, or fewer women have a commercial background is probably a better way to say that, right? So they haven't been involved in that side of a business and been exposed to it. You'll find a lot of families still today where the women aren't as involved in the financial side, even on a personal level. And so they don't have that exposure and that comfort with money sometimes in the same way that guys do. So that will influence them from basically, sorry, only the German word is coming to mind.
Aha.
From a core beliefs perspective,
Hmm.
it'll bring up roadblocks for them, because what I find a lot of women do is they just ignore that side of the business.
Right.
When it comes to the numbers, they're kind of, putting their head in the sand. And here's the thing, that you didn't start a business to go broke. You started a business to earn a living while serving your customers. And in order to continue to be there to serve them, you're going to have to figure out how to earn money consistently.
Right. Right.
Right.
Okay. You talk about how there are 3 reasons why you might be pricing your services wrong. Talk to me
Mm-hmm.
about that.
Right. So one we sort of talked about a little bit already, and this is being overly focused on what the competition is doing. I'm a strong believer, and my experience tells me that pricing the right prices is rooted in a deep understanding of your customer. So when I work with clients, we go through 5 steps. We look at who's the customer, what's the offer, what's the value of that offer to the customer. Then we check the marketplace, i.e. the competition, and we check cost and profit. With the methodology we talked about at the beginning, where you say, this is what I offer and this is what other people are doing, so I'll price a little bit lower, that completely ignores who the customer is and what the value is that they get from your offer.
Right.
Which to me are 2 very, very important things to be ignoring. It also kind of ignores the, the cost and profit piece, right? So how am I going to consistently generate cash and be there to serve my clients? So that's one way that service businesses kind of make a mistake here or doing it wrong. Another thing that they're doing when they do it in this way is they're assuming that everybody else is serving the same kind of customers, that the offer is similar in content, but also in its intention. I'll come back to that moment. And that those businesses are profitable.
Right.
Those are 3.
Right. Those are 3 big things that you may not know. Yeah.
They're huge assumptions.
Those are huge assumptions. Yeah. If you hear in the industry, oh, well, somebody is doing it at this price, you really do not know what's going on behind the scenes.
No, you don't. And this goes back to the second point that I said I'd come back to here, is that let's take challenges. You can find challenges that people do for free or offer for free, and you can find challenges that are quite expensive, right? That are, thousands even. So where do you put yourself in that? Well, one of the reasons that you have these price differences is the intention behind the offer is different. The person who's offering it for free, it's usually a gateway product or offer where they're offering that to get people in the door to sell them something else.
Right.
Somebody who's charging for it may be using it as a little offer or as their core offer.
Right. Is there a risk? Is there a risk of if you come in too low on your service offer, is there a risk of you looking like, well, maybe you don't know what you're doing if you're coming in so low? It's like you're so undervaluing yourself. It then questions your credibility.
Of course. I mean, we've all done it as consumers. We've all looked at the price tag on something and thought, what's the catch?
Right.
Should I take the risk just because the price is low? Will I really get the value out of it that I should? We've all done that. And I would say I have my own podcast. I have a lot of guests on there who talk about how they underpriced themselves and they struggled and struggled and struggled. And once the price was in the right place and they understood what was behind that and why it needed to be there, it suddenly became much easier to convert the sales. And part of that is having a price that matches the value that you're saying. So if you're saying this is worth so much value and you're going to get so much out of it, and I'll give it to you for $5, chances are people just aren't going to believe that the value is really there.
Right. Let's talk about value for a second, because I think that flows very nicely into my next question. Is you talk about diminishing word patterns and how this impacts your value.
Correct.
So talk to me, what is a diminishing word pattern, and then how does that hurt us?
Yeah. So I learned this from Tara Moore. She wrote a book called Playing Big, a book I highly recommend. Lovely, lovely book. It's about women, playing bigger. So diminishing word patterns are these little words and phrases that we use that actually diminish the impact of our message. One of the best examples I can give is you meet someone new, you exchange, a few pleasantries, and you say, "Hey, Sharon, what do you do?" And you go, "I'm just a coach." There's something about that word "just" that just completely dampens the whole statement, right? So that's one example. We also use words like, one of the things that I've recognized recently is "I think." and I know women do this a lot. So we qualify things that we should be saying as statements. We say, well, I think blah, 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 blah. Well, why not just say blah, 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 blah. Right? We're qualifying the statement because we're unsure on some level.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're communicating value or you're talking about prices, you want to be really careful of these word patterns because they can completely destroy your message. So here's one that I hear all the time. I'll ask someone, a new client or a prospect client, I'll say, okay, so what do you charge? And they go, I think 500. Or they go, 500? And they say it to you as a question rather than, oh, I charge 500 for that. Right. So just that little intonation, I charge 500 versus I charge 500 can make a complete difference in how the prospect client responds to your offer. In one case, you sound sure about what you're offering and sure about the price that you're charging. In the other one, you're kind of asking them if it's okay.
Right. We are asking permission to charge them that amount. And then what you have to do is you then have to qualify by selling yourself. You have to say, but I'm really worth it. I think I'm worth it.
I think.
Yeah, I think I'm worth it. Yeah.
You shouldn't think, right? You should know.
Yeah. Those are, I will tell you that it is something I struggle with.
we all do it because some of it is so ingrained in the way that we were raised or how we were, told or taught to speak based on what our parents or especially our mothers, and in a lot of cases, we're talking about women. And also we've been, and this Tara talks about this a lot in the book, that, we've been sort of trained in a sense to downplay the value that we do bring. Mm-hmm. So of course, when we try to step outside of that comfort zone and get serious about the value we bring, it all these like uncertainties and this lack of confidence kind of percolates to the top.
Right. So I want to share with you something that happened to me in the last couple of weeks. And then when I realized you were coming on the show, I was so excited. I was like, okay, I'm just going to ask her. So I have worked in the corporate world for over 20 some years. And I just recently went out on my own. And I had a client call me and he said, listen, we would like to get your bid, but I will tell you now that because you work from home and you don't have any overhead, we're going to need your bid to be at least half of your competitors. and he goes, and that seems reasonable to us. And I was really at a point where I was like, is that reasonable? Now, you tell me what your take on that is.
Am I allowed to swear on this show?
Yeah, swear, do it. I love you, girl. Swear.
I would say hell no way. Hell no way, because my prices are based on the value that my customer gets out of it.
Yeah. So when I had a chance to think about it, it was like, well, first of all, my overhead is none of your business. And second of all, I have the same overhead as everybody else. I have a mortgage, I have student loans, I have car payments.
Yeah, but it's not about that. See, this is the thing, Sharon.
Tell me.
The price, and this is the mistake so many people make, the price should not be tied to the costs of you doing business.
Right.
Not so strongly. I mean, if you're running an economy-based pricing strategy where you are trying to be the low price leader in the market, that's different. But in general, your price, and for small businesses, I very strongly feel small businesses, their price should primarily be based on value. And if you're trying to be in the middle of the road price-wise, then value and competition. But it's really about the value that it brings, right, and the quality, the value that it brings your customers. And I would guess in this case, it's not going to be any different if you're there or not. Right. If it were, they probably wouldn't ask for an offer.
Right.
They're just trying to put the screws to you.
Well, that's true. And it worked. And it got in my head for a brief moment. I did really doubt myself. But then I realized, you know what? My pricing is based on my years of experience. My pricing is based on so much more. It is it's not just the hours I'm going to put in for you. It is what I bring to the table. It is who I know and what I can do. And so I had to kind of rework my own thinking.
Yeah. 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 And I always wonder if they say that to everyone, or because it's someone who you've worked with in the past and they feel it's okay to behave that way.
Yeah.
I mean, this is for me personally, and this is not my client and not my situation, but for me, it wouldn't be a good fit. I'd be like, you know what? I think I'm not the right person for this job. I really appreciate the opportunity. If other opportunities come up, feel free to call me, but this is not for me, because if you took that, how bad would it make you feel?
Yeah.
Every time you were working for them, every time they asked you to do one little thing more, you would probably feel such a high level of resentment, which would then affect the quality of your work and what they're getting out of it.
Right.
And that's not good for them or for you.
Agreed. Now you have a video, I love it. You have a very successful YouTube channel. I've watched a lot of the videos getting ready for this. But one of the things that really struck me is that you talk about shifting away from time-based pricing. And I think you just tapped on it a second ago. Why is time-based pricing the challenge?
Yeah. So I think the biggest reason that time-based pricing is generally not the best way to go is because as you grow in your expertise, as you become more efficient in how you work, the customer gets more value for less money. So it actually doesn't scale with your business as you grow and develop. And this to me is again, it's based, because people think in terms of, oh, if I put this much effort in, it should cost this much. It feels like, okay, if I'm spending less time, I should charge them less. But what if by spending less time, you can bring them more value? Correct. Shouldn't you be charging them more?
Right. Isn't it a lot like when people tell you work smarter, not harder, but the smarter you work, the less you're paying yourself?
In a sense, yeah.
Yeah.
In
so
a
you
sense.
have to make sure that you're paying a full value. I guess what I think of as a full value rate. Just because I can do it really well and do it quickly doesn't mean I'm worth less money.
No, of course not. I mean, if I can help somebody save $10,000 in their business, and yesterday it took me an hour to do, but I learned something in the process of doing that, and today it only takes me 5 minutes. Should I charge them less for the fact that they can earn $10,000 more out of that?
Right.
No way.
That's
No
awesome.
way.
That's so interesting. Okay, so I want people, tell me what the name of your YouTube channel is.
Well, they can go to thepricinglady.com/live, and it'll take them right there.
And I will tell you from experience, I watched several of the videos. They are excellent. They are really good.
Super. It's also now in podcast form. So if you're not a video watcher, you can find it on the podcast directories as well.
And if you want people to reach out to you, which obviously you do, how's the best way to do that?
So they can find me pretty much everywhere as The Pricing Lady. The website, LinkedIn are usually the two places that it's easiest to reach out.
Right. You're pretty active on LinkedIn, right? I think that's how I found one of the places I saw you. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Very welcome. It was my pleasure to be here.
All right. I am gonna close this out because I want to do a wrap up for you. But thank you very much, Janene.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to meet you.
You too. Have a nice day.
Yep. You too. Bye.
Bye-bye. And that was our show for today. Thank you for listening to the Procure Smarter podcast. If you're enjoying our show, don't forget to follow us on Spotify and leave a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. And if you do, we'll shout you out on the next episode. We're currently interviewing guests for season 2 of the Procure Smarter podcast, dropping in the spring. If you've got a take on the hospitality and purchasing industry, we'd love to hear it. For interest in being a guest, you can reach out to us at our website, LinkedIn, or Instagram. For all ProcureSmart episodes, find us on Buzzsprout, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else you listen. And for inquiries about how we can help you with your purchasing needs, please reach out to us at our website at ProcureSmartCo.com. See you next time, everybody.